Well, hello. Welcome to Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies, Part 2. Catherine made the tutus, and I did the tech. The goal here is to try to understand a little better how to minimize flicker and single-frame stop-motion animation. Now, I might mention some of the pictures here are from the internet. Please note that the copyright belongs to the original owner. Do know that this material is provided for educational purposes only for my courses in visual effects. The products discussed in this video are only a presentation of what I used and are not an endorsement. So let's take a look at what I did a few years ago. Dance of the Sugar Plum Rats, 2014. And as you take a look here, the actions are much more exaggerated. That is the distance between them. I was real quick to just make something work. But also note that the luminosity changes or flickers as we go through. It'll become more pronounced as we get along here. As you can see, the lighting changes quite significantly at this particular turn. So if you take a note of the lighting or colors on this left image, it's darker and the other one is lighter. So what are some of the causes? Well, I just might mention that I did look at incandescent lighting because it doesn't flicker. However, it gets pretty hot. Further, it's what I would call a reddish color. So that didn't do because I wanted to get full colors. Could have used fluorescent lights, but they also flicker. They run very cool. However, they appear greenish in photography. There are some studio versions, but they're fairly expensive. Camera I used for this project is a Nikon D600. It's a full frame camera, and it is quite a remarkable piece of technology. Now, the thing I learned with regard to the camera is that I wanted to turn everything off, anything that's automatic. So I turned automatic ISO off, automatic white balance off, autofocus off, and I place the camera in manual mode. Moving on to the green screen setup, my previous setup was too complicated. If you happen to look on my Facebook page, you can see I had all kinds of things like racks and bolts and all kinds of LEDs and so forth, and it took a day or so to put together, and it took a couple of hours to take apart. So I wanted something much more simple and easy to set up and easy to break down. So I went to Amazon, took a look there for different kinds of lighting elements, and looked for some lighting solutions, and I found this. It's only $135 or so. It's easy to set up, it's easy to break down, it's easy to store. As you can see, it folds up. And it's slightly heavy, but nonetheless, it's pretty good. It also contains its own LED lighting. It's designed very well for taking pictures of single images. There's a flap that comes down and you can use your iPhone. There's a hole for the camera, and does a very good job for that. However, I wanted to repurpose it for what I'm doing. Further, it's portable. In other words, even though it is a little heavy, I could take it to my college. Now, when I set it up, I took a look inside of the light, did a few studies, and I found that there was just not enough lighting. So I got this item. I got them because they were LEDs, and there should be no flicker because they're DC powered. And also, you might note up here in the upper left, there is a we call a rheostat or a dimmer control. And I got two of these systems, and I was able to use it for this lighting and for the lighting that came with the portable studio. Tiny bit warm, but nothing to be bothered about at all. Totally cool. And it's easily mounted with gaffer tape. Again, dimmable. It was only about $52 from Amazon. Now, with regard to green screen itself, I use green screen muslin quite a bit. And I've gotten quite a few of these for my students because it's easy to cut up. and break it into parts for my students to use. This is for my visual effects courses. It's fairly low cost. It's only about $70, and the amount of material you get is just huge. I also use studio clamps to mount the muslin onto, say, like blackboards or whiteboards or certain areas. I found stands are a little bit difficult, so mounting it to a wall or so forth is a little bit better. What do I like about it? It's cheap, really cheap. It's also very portable. What do I have problems with? Keeping it flat. If you kind of take a close look at this image, you can see where there's a little bit of shadow or so forth caused by the folds in the material. So I said, let's see if there's an alternative. I want something that's already there that gives me the color I want that's flat. So I purchased these foam boards, and there are about 10 of them for about $64, and I got them shipped, and they're nice and flat and clean. Well, guess what? They're 20 inches by 30 inches, and they fit perfectly in the portable studio. I couldn't have been more delighted with that particular prospect. There was a small problem with the shadow, however, so I purchased this green fluorescent gaffer's tape, and yep, I got it at Amazon for about 17 bucks. If you take a note here, sorry I went too far here. If you take a note here at the corner, you can kind of see where there are the edges of the tape, but otherwise it's perfectly the right color. So here's a comparison. Note the lighting on the tape and the lighting on the board are pretty much the same. And here's a little distance view to show you what the material looks like. Well, the next target was the camera lens. All the lenses that I have are camera controlled. That means the shutter is controlled and the aperture is controlled. I'm sorry, I should have said the aperture is controlled. And I found out that the aperture is automatically closed and open each time you take a picture. So I needed something that would not allow the shutter, I keep saying shutter, sorry about that. I keep allowing the aperture to change. So I went to my photography store, Mike's Camera in Dublin, California, talked to my friend Ven at the store and asked for a totally manual lens. He did some research and came up with this 50 millimeter manual focus with the aperture that's totally manually controlled, and it was only $129. Now, we have the issue here of just simple logistics of taking pictures, and touching the camera and taking a picture and storing it somewhere or putting it on a card, I just found was a pain. So I went and looked for different kinds of solutions for tethering for remote control software, and I found this thing from kuvacode.com, a smart shooter. Provided complete control of my camera via USB cable. As there's a single user license of $70. It might seem a little steep, but for the control that you get for the different things, different aspects you can control and automate with this software is quite good. So I was able to control the camera from my Apple keyboard, and in this particular instance I had it sitting on my lap, and after I moved the rats I would hit the T key to take a shot. What's also nice about this is I was able to direct the pictures to go to a particular folder. As you can see, these are all listed in particular order. They're single frames, and I was delighted to find that they were nice, clean, single luminosity images. So automatic storage of each frame. On Amazon.com, some people were complaining about controlling lighting for the portable studio. Well, as I might note, I had several lights in there with the dimmers, and I was able to turn them all on and all off with this device. Also, I had some a dimmer control to help me control the lighting for each of these because of the LEDs. This is just a shot of the camera, some additional lighting with the mounted lens. Here are the actors. Catherine made the tutus for the actors. They like peanut butter, So they were quite happy to stay there. Well, as it turns out, between the time I had initially animated them in 2014 and now, they've been sitting there for 4 years. So here we can see what we do is we take the rats and we move them one frame at a time. So I have some interpositions here that you can see. So I move the rats till I move them to the next frame. Well, this is an experiment, a study in how to do single frame animation, and I also coupled it with work with Nuke. It's a visual effects tool. I teach Nuke where I work as an instructor, so I was able to acquire an educator's license to study Nuke and created this content for my students to work with. Now I might note that this shoot had a lot of problems, and I do that on purpose. There's green screen spill, you might note on the plastic surface. There are transparent elements with the tutus, which can cause all kinds of problems. And of course, there's a reflective surface which has more green spill. This is the tree that I used with Nuke in order to control the aspects of green screen, keying, and adding a background. So at this particular stage, I have all my elements read in. Did a hue correct, which controls some of the green spill. Actually, before you do anything, a little bit of hue correction can reduce the amount of green. It also helps in reducing the amount of spill. There is a setting for what we call green screen spill. I had to reformat the images because from the camera they come out quite large, and I wanted to make a 1080p image. This is the keyer. There are a variety of other keyers, of course, but this one gave me the most color control and was the simplest to use, had the fewest controls, and gave me most of the control that I needed. This is an image of the background. Here is the reformat again, so all the images are the same format, and that is included as a background. Then when I'm done, I write all of this out with a write node. So let's take a look at what the green screen looks like. As you can see, it does look somewhat bright, but with the hue reduction, I was able to bring that down a little bit. But you can see for the most part, the green screen is nice and flat. Now here's the alpha channel. Here's the proof in the pudding. You can see a little bit of fuzz in the background, but as it turns out, that little bit of noise is not a problem for the proper background you might have. Tried to get them as clean as I could, but as you might note, the transparency of the tutus did lead a problem. So let's take a quick look at the final result. You might note I had the moves in the background move as they're floating up in the air. These are the sugar plum FairyRats floating in the air. Here's another. Basically able to repurpose the same keyframe. You might note that I had little errors there in the background. And thank you very much.